Good morning. It's another chilly day today at Walt Disney World, and I'm hanging out in my new favorite place to hang out here. Of course, we're in EPCOT, and yes, we're in the new World Celebration area that just opened up. I've got a coffee, I've got an entire table to myself. Honestly, what more could you ask for? This is like the perfect way to start a day. But we're not gonna just sit here all day. We've got some stuff to do, and I'm taking you with me as per usual. So let's finish this coffee and get our day started. If you were wondering, this is where we've been hanging out this morning. We had an amazing view of Spaceship Earth. We had some charging available and these really deep benches, which is really nice because you can sit like crisscross applesauce really comfortably here. So perfect way to start the day. Now we did tour this area yesterday. It's so gorgeous. You can take a look if you're interested. I love this space. I think it's a perfect addition to EPCOT. Let me know your thoughts in a comment though. But like I said, let's get our day started, make our way into World Showcase, which is where we're headed. Now of course there's a lot going on here today, of course, because it is Festival of the Holidays. It's day 2 of Luminous, which is the new nighttime spectacular happening here at EPCOT. And let me just say, we saw it last night and it was fantastic. I do want to share some thoughts with you on that show. I don't know if we're going to do it today, but I will say that I do think it's a great show, and I do think that it's a better show than Harmonious was, which is great. We should always be moving forward, and I think that we are moving forward with this show, at least in my opinion. Speaking of Luminous though, I did have a question about whether or not the barges are still out. According to Disney, the barges are not going to be out during the daytime hours. They'll be coming out just for the show. So I want to take a look, and as it turns out, I think they did in fact deliver on that promise. Look, it looks like they only have one kind of center barge out there right now, probably because they're doing some work on it, because I can see some hard hats and construction vests. So that's awesome. And you know, this is what we were hoping for. We were hoping that Disney would deliver on this promise, because this is such a beautiful view when it doesn't have any barges in the way. And we weren't able to truly enjoy it for such a long time, and now we can. So that is wonderful. I'm so happy about that. Although I do wonder what it's like when the barges come out. I wonder if they come out after dark or when they come out. Maybe we'll catch it one of these days. But okay, now that we've checked in on the barges, which was like top priority for today, let's chat about a few things, because you've left some interesting questions and comments on the channel, and I want to take some time to address some of them. So let's do just that. At least get that conversation started. So most of these questions and comments came as a result of our conversation where we talked about third-party tour guides being banned from Walt Disney World. So first and foremost, I did get a message from one of you who said that you had no idea that this was a thing. And I totally see how that could be the case. But yes, it is a thing. And there are a number of third-party companies that might actually be helpful to you if you're visiting Walt Disney World, but you might not even know that they're a thing depending on how you plan your Disney vacations. So you know how we talk about everyone vacations differently, everyone does Disney differently? Everyone plans their vacations differently as well. And there's kind of two camps to that. So on one side, we have people who do everything themselves. They book their own hotels, they do their own research. Those people tend to be unaware of some of these third-party services, mainly because I think they're just so used to handling everything themselves, which by the way is fantastic. It's one of the things that we do here, is try and help you figure out how to manage all of this on your own. Nothing wrong with planning your vacation on your own. Great way to go. But over here, we have another camp of people. And this camp of people relies on other people to book their vacations for them. They use a middleman. They use a travel agent. Wow, it just got really quiet. Never heard it this quiet. That's better. Now, before I go any farther, I want to be very clear. There's nothing wrong with using a travel agent to book your vacations, whether we're talking about Disney or anywhere else. They can be fantastic, but they can also be not so fantastic. So it's important to do your research. Of course, we can talk more about that some other time, and I think that we probably will, because I do think it's an important discussion and one that would be useful, especially in this moment right now. But anyway, more on that later. Now, it's the people who work with travel agents and work with a middleman that are more likely to know about things like tour guides and other third-party services. Usually because those third-party services work with travel agents, and together they find clients and they sell them the products or services that they offer. So those people are more likely to be aware of the fact that tour guides exist, and people who do things all on their own are less likely to. So I'm not surprised that you haven't heard of third-party tour guides, but like I said, they're one of many services that are available or offered here at Walt Disney World, albeit one that is unauthorized and that Disney's cracking down on. But there are, of course, other third-party services that are available here at Walt Disney World and aren't against the rules that if you book your own vacations, you might not be aware of. So let's breeze through some real quick. There are places that offer gift baskets, that deliver groceries. And I'm not talking about like Amazon Fresh. I'm talking about actual services, like actual companies that will go grocery shopping for you and deliver them to you. There are wheelchair and mobility device rentals, of course, stroller rentals, and the list goes on. This is another conversation we can have some other time if you're interested in learning more about what's available to you. So if you are, pop it in a comment. But yeah, a lot of these, some of you might not even realize are a thing, especially if you're managing your vacations on your own. And you know, that's one of the reasons that people love working with a travel agent, although it can sometimes come with a fee. But it's one of the reasons that I always say, take the time to do your research and Google, even if you're not sure something exists, because it just might, and that service might make your life so much easier. Well, let's skedaddle on to our next location before we crack out another question. We've got a lot of running around to do today, so we're gonna be jumping around from place to place. Bear with me. But you know, what fun would it be if we only ever took our own advice? You know? Gotta change things up. You have to change things up. We've made our way to Japan now, and one of my favorite spots. I feel like we've been spending quite a bit of time back here, but I mean, look at it. Who wouldn't want to hang out back here? Anyway, let's grab a seat and dig in to the next few comments. In fact, the next thing I want to talk about is actually a question. That question was, what exactly does a third-party tour guide do? And this is a great question that, quite frankly, I don't really have a solid answer for a couple of reasons. So first and foremost, third-party tour guides, they all promise different things, just like any company is going to promise a different service, at least in part. Many of them just say that they offer a quote VIP experience, which, what does that mean? Others try and get a little bit more specific, which, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this already in our conversation today because a lot's been going through my mind, but when I was editing our last conversation, there were a few things that I wanted to double and triple check myself on, which I do every time we sit down and have a conversation. And so I researched a bunch of these companies and I found a few things that were a bit surprising to me. But in terms of what these third-party companies are offering, particularly when they're being a bit more specific, it's stuff like getting you on all of your must-do attractions and making it so that you don't have to wait in any lines. Neither of those things are really realistic promises. There are others who say that they'll supervise your kids for you if they can't or don't want to go on an attraction, which I have some questions about as well. But the long and short of it is they're kind of all over the place with what it is that they are saying that they can do for you. And quite frankly, as someone who's here all the time and tries to figure out different methods of going through the parks and how to do it in the most efficient way possible to get you on as many attractions as you can, I don't know how someone can promise that to you, especially if they aren't Disney, whose tour guides quite literally have special privileges to ensure that you can get on more attractions and cut down on wait times. Now, all of this having been said, that's not to say that a third-party tour guide has nothing to offer. They might have knowledge of the parks that you don't have. They might have knowledge of My Disney Experience or Genie Plus that you don't have. But all of that is knowledge that you can acquire and certainly shouldn't cost you $250 to $950 an hour, at least in my opinion. I will say though, there are plenty of people who could benefit from having an extra set of hands, especially if you have multiple kids that are traveling with you. But at least for me, and I know that everyone feels differently about this type of thing, it does raise a question of who exactly are these people? Do they have background checks? What are their qualifications? And do I feel safe leaving my child with someone that was simply marketed as a VIP tour guide? I don't know about that, but it's definitely something that I'd be taking into consideration. Oh my goodness, it is so cold up there. The wind is blowing. It's like a wind tunnel right now. So we're gonna do some shopping. I only ever spend so much time in here because the likelihood that I will spend money is pretty good. Speaking of which, got our holiday gift assortment here of different omiyage. $39.95 though. It's a lot. And then we have some other cookies with chocolate inside, essentially like a chocolate cigar. Those are all delicious. All of them are really, really good. Especially the rolled ones. They're really crunchy and sweet. I stayed in there as long as I could. I didn't want to be tempted to buy any snacks, honestly. So I'm here now on a bench, soaking up the sun. It's a good place to be. Of course, like I said, I do have some plans, so I'm gonna be hanging out here for a little bit, but I think it's gonna be worth it. Welcome back to the good old US of A. Now, I heard that there are some holiday displays in here that I'm gonna go check out. Might as well wander through while we're here. Okay, I see them back there. Let's go take a look. Looks like all the jazz stuff is gone, though. Oh, too bad. That's all right. It was just an exhibit. Sure, everything needed to go back to wherever it had come from. Check it out. Little gingerbread display. And here's one of this pavilion. Let's see what else we can find. Oh, how cool is this? I've known that those displays have been in there, but I've never checked them out until now, which is pretty cool. But check this out. A little bit of magic right here in front of the American Adventure. Now our next stop is Italy. Now we're just making our way. Oh my goodness. Is that Santa? Just might be. Gotta be on our best behavior as we make our way through. Goodness knows I can use all the help I can get. Can't we all? Okay, so the next thing I wanted to address that was actually a really great question was about whether or not the foreign tour guides are also being banned. Now this is kind of a tricky question because it depends on what exactly you mean. First, if you're talking about third-party tour guides that are a foreigner who is operating a third-party tour guide company here at Walt Disney World, I don't have any reason to believe that these rules, this crackdown would apply to them. However, if you're referring to like the large tour groups that come through Walt Disney World all the time, this is a different thing, mainly because those tour groups are coordinated in part with Disney. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I don't fully understand how that works. I haven't really dug into it, but it's not necessarily the same as a third-party tour guide that is offering private tours on a one-on-one basis. And so in that way, to kind of cut to the chase, I don't think that we're gonna see anything change in regards to how many of those tours we see in the parks or anything like that. I know that's probably not what you wanted to hear, and yes, I do believe that more needs to be done to manage those tour groups, but they're not going anywhere anytime soon. It's around lunchtime, so like I said, we are jumping all over the place today, and I have some food. This is the souffle. Now it is lunchtime, which means that there are a lot of lines right now. So I lucked out. There was no line for this, and I'm happy about it. But let's take a quick bite, and then we'll get back to talking about some of your comments. I don't even know what to expect. It just looked good. I didn't even read the description. Let's get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, some sauce. Lots of flavors there. A lot going on, and I'm not complaining. So we've talked a little bit about this, talked a little bit about that. Oh, check it out. There's like a flower on my garnish. What is this? I don't know, but I just ate it. Okay, so the next comment I want to touch on really briefly came from someone who said that, in a nutshell, Disney doesn't really have the right to ban third-party tour guides because they don't have the right to ban competitors. And if we were talking about a public space, I would agree. But just like every other business in the country, Disney has the right to enforce their policies and terms of service, which is essentially what they're doing here. When you purchase your park tickets and when you pass through those gates, you're agreeing to property rules and the terms of service. If you don't want to do that, or if you break those rules or in any way disregard them, Disney, just like any other company, has the right to enforce those rules that they have established. And that is what Disney is doing here. Now, to be fair, I did mention that these third-party tour guides are in direct competition with Disney, and they are, because Disney is offering that exact service. Imagine going into your local McDonald's and from the booth in the corner, someone's selling cheeseburgers. That is not gonna fly. And it's not gonna fly at Disney, and it's certainly not gonna fly at most businesses around the country. or even around the world. And honestly, this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, which is another comment that one of you actually left in the process of me chatting with you today. Like, this is a real-time answer. None of this should come as a surprise. Just like it shouldn't come as a surprise that you can't sell apples at the grocery store. Or I should probably say that you can't set up an apple stand inside a grocery store and sell your own apples, you know? It's not how the world works. It's not how the world has ever worked. And much like the commenter who mentioned that, I too find it surprising that people find it surprising. But you know, if I can take a step back for a second, it really shouldn't surprise anyone that Disney wants to also protect guests as well. I mean, of course, profit is part of this. No company wants to be undercut. No company wants competition coming into their home and undercutting them. But I think there's also something to be said for Disney wanting to ensure that guests aren't taken for a ride. I mean, in our first conversation, I talked about how I think it can be a little bit confusing for guests. You know, maybe they think they're booking a VIP tour through Disney and it turns out that they're booking a VIP tour through a third party and they're not actually getting what they think they paid for. But this kind of thought process, this idea that I had that this might be a problem, was reinforced when I looked at some of the reviews of some of these third-party companies. There's a surprising number of reviews that make it clear that guests are confused as to where the line is drawn. Some of them thinking that they were getting one thing and they actually got another, and that in and of itself is a problem. And it's a problem that, like other business-related problems, Disney's gonna want to rectify. And quite frankly, I think we should expect nothing less from Disney. They know that there's a problem. They should fix that problem in the best way they can. And you know, it's situations like this that give us the opportunity to ask ourselves, what would we want to do if we were in a position like the one that Disney is in? What might our responsibility be, not only to our company, but also to our guests who may or may not be booking a tour that isn't what they think they're booking? Now, I'm of the opinion that you do have a responsibility to not only uphold your policies, but you have a responsibility to also protect the guests who might be taken for a ride in situations like this. And again, that's what Disney's doing. And you know what? I know some of you aren't gonna like hearing this, so brace yourselves, but we can't be picky and choosy with what a business can and cannot do, especially when we're being picky and choosy because it doesn't align with our political affiliations. This is a big, complicated conversation that we will have some other time, but today is not that day. And with that, we've arrived in the parking lot, but we're not done yet. There's one more thing that I want to talk about, and that is other third-party services that are available to you that are not offered by Disney. One of you mentioned that you're hoping Disney does away with the dining reservation websites. This is another one of those things we've never talked about, some of you might not know about, but we're gonna take a minute now and get into it. Also, we've found the G. Big win. Didn't have to hunt today. There are third-party websites out there that for a fee will essentially help you find hard to get dining reservations. And how exactly this happens, of course, is probably different for every different website and or company, but one way that some go about doing this is to hoard dining reservations. So basically, these people will go in, get a bunch of dining reservations, then they charge people for those dining reservations. They're scalpers, okay? They're scalpers. They're scalping dining reservations. And a lot of people have problems with this, myself included. And I think that a lot of us would like to see Disney do something about it, much like you who left that comment on our video. The good news is that Disney seems to be, in fact, doing a little something about this. Now, full disclosure, I don't know all of the details, but this is what I've heard through the grapevine. And of course, I myself don't make multiple dining reservations and try to switch them to different people, so I've never experienced this firsthand, probably never will. But a couple months ago, I think it was, people started talking about how Disney has changed the way that you can make dining reservations, ultimately only allowing you to make one reservation per time slot and preventing people from changing who is the lead on the reservation. So in a nutshell, if you make a dining reservation, your name is on that reservation. And now, no matter what, your name will be on that reservation unless you cancel that reservation. Now again, I haven't tried this. I probably won't. So I'm counting on you who are out there and may have done this to let me know what you are experiencing so that I, of course, can pass that information on and we can help more people, you know? But this, in combination with preventing people from making multiple reservations in one time slot, I think is going to, at very least, change the game for people who are selling dining reservations. Which is a good thing, at least in my perspective, for a number of different reasons, but especially because this means it should be easier to get hard to get dining reservations in the future. Because we should no longer have people making multiple dining reservations for the same time slot, ultimately filling up reservations before the rest of us have the opportunity to even get one. And again, like I said, disclaimer, I haven't done this, so I don't have any personal experience with it, but I have seen people kind of back off on advertising these apps and websites. Now, that's not to say that they don't exist anymore. That's not to even say that they've backed off at all. I'm just saying that I haven't seen people talking about them like they once did. But again, let me know your experience. So yeah, I think that that's another way that Disney is actually making adjustments in order to regain some control over the situation. And no, I don't mean control in an evil genius way, but in a this has gotten out of hand kind of way. And as an aside, kind of from a business perspective, I think it's in Disney's best interest to make sure that they kind of manage this and that they pay close attention to it, which Disney does. A lot of people say that Disney doesn't care about their guests, they don't care about their guests' wants and needs, but they absolutely do, especially with things like this. If Disney sees that people are willing to pay for their reservations, like in order to secure hard to get reservations at restaurants that are must-dos, they're definitely going to capitalize on that if they can. And we've seen this in the past with things like individual lightning lane selections. I know a lot of people don't remember it, but back in 2019 when Rise of the Resistance first opened, people hated the virtual queue system. And some people said that they would much rather pay for a guaranteed time slot than have to wake up early and get to the park to attempt to get a boarding group. Not long thereafter, boom, they deliver. Disney, that is, by charging you for a time slot. So yeah, the long and short of it is be careful what you wish for, you know? But anyway, we're here in the car. I'm now like bacon in the sun. I've been freezing this whole time, but it does kind of feel nice to be nice and warm. Famous last words, I know. Here in a couple months, I'll be melting in front of you. But I think that's about all for today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I hope that you had your question answered. If you didn't, please feel free to go ask it in the comments down below. I love having these conversations, and I think they're good conversations to have. You know, sometimes they're a little bit difficult. People don't like to have them all that often, but we don't shy away, so go ahead, do a little tapping on your keyboard, let us know your thoughts. Also, while you're there, hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed hanging out with us today, and subscribe if you want to join us on our next adventure. I do have some fun things coming your way. I have some fun holiday stuff coming your way. I know that we just kind of started all of that yesterday, but oh, we have only just begun. So hit that button, thumbs up if you haven't already, and we hope to see you next time.